Sup, bro? I know. Like most of you, I thought Heartseeker was doomed after finding out Victimize was still bugged from the PTR, with most of our multipliers not working. But I promised my chat I'd play the build anyways and figure out a way to make it decent, and boy, we did. Not only did we make it decent, I remastered Heartseeker into what you're seeing on the screen right now, literally tearing through T8 Infernal Horde content. This does not mean it's not bugged still. It's just that most of our damage is not coming from Victimize, but rather our own Heartseeker, which in more cases than not, feels even better than it did in Season 4. Infernal Horde is not the only thing that is good at doing. If you want to beat up Lilith for a bit, have fun. It's just as easy as it was before with fast staggering. Rather do some quick pit tier 101s to change things up for farming or to target farm an item? Go ahead. This speeds through 101s even faster than it did last season, to the point where you can take off Victimize key passive because you're one-shotting everything and can't proc it anyways. Or maybe you want to do some torment bosses. Well, that's covered too. Uriel never stood a chance here. You see him running away. We won't tell nobody. Do your own thing with Heartseeker this season as the underrated sleeper build for Rogue. So we're going to go over the skills real quick. I mean, it is Heartseeker, so it shouldn't be too long. We dump all of our points into Heartseeker here, and we come all the way down to primary Heartseeker so we can ricochet. We take Sturdy and also Siphoning Strikes. If you feel a little bit squishy or you need a little bit more healing, you can always put more points into Siphoning Strikes if you would like. Come down here, I take a point into Shadow Step, usually just to break out a CC or the occasional repositioning. We take Cow Traps, so therefore we can get the pretty big damage from the middle passive, basically 45% when it's at max. Also, it activates our ambush glyph as well as our deadly ambush legendary node for more damage too as well. So pretty big deal here. We take unstable elixirs and trick attacks just because for most rogue builds in general, there's just OP, so you're gonna take that in general. We got dash. We come down here, we take the extra charges because we want to get around pretty quickly. We take weapon mastery, we max that out. Come all the way down here, smoke grenade. We take the cooldown one because we want to cast it as much as we can. Dark Shroud obviously for defense. We come up here to take countering Dark Shroud to try to get a little bit more crit chance because we still do want to crit. Coming down here to exploit and malice just for more damage. Then we also take Cold Imbuement, which is a little bit new this time around because we're running with Cold Clip on our Heartseeker. So Cold Clip actually does get the Cold Imbuement values, which includes their vulnerability as well as the mixing Cold Imbuement, which gives us mega big damage here too as well on a Heartseeker, as well as with Frigid Finesse as we have always taken in the past. Come here, innervation is pretty important, but I will only just put 1 point into it and try to get innervation ranks on here. You'll see me talk about that later. This is so therefore you can sustain your energy. We do want to max out Alchemist Fortune, so because now our Heartseeker is elemental, so that will give us more lucky hit chance to be able to proc things such as our Victimized key passive. Then we also want to take second wind and get extra ranks into that because that gives us barrier, which we almost have up permanently as we're fighting, so that makes us pretty tanky. We come here to Death Trap because we're running preparation, so we really want to get Death Trap off cooldown as much as we possibly can, because while we're running preparation, we're also taking the No Witness legendary node, which gives us damage based on how much ultimate skill damage that we have to as well. So it's basically a 39 to 45% multiplier whenever I do cast Death Trap, and I get off cooldown quite a bit with Heartseeker being able to spend energy. And last but not least, we come down here and we take Victimize. It is still bugged. We actually don't put too much emphasis on the vulnerable damage for Victimize. We actually take damage per Dark Shroud. We'll talk about this again in the gearing, but this is pretty much your skills, and let's go to gearing. All right, first and foremost, you want Kyle the Nameless. I know it's going to be pretty much on most rogue builds, but unstable elixirs and trick attacks are just way too good here. And this time around, you do actually want to get the unique affix pretty high because you do want more lucky hit chance for a build like this. We got 27%. We didn't get so lucky for something like this, but get a higher value. It's going to be easier on you, especially when enemies are crowd controlled. The typical materials might here, masterwork damage reduction and or the maximum resistance. Come down to a glove. Initially I had the Fist of Fate glove, and I actually had a pretty decent roll of it. I went back and forth between the two gloves, and I really strongly feel that a regular glove is just makes more sense here. It's a bit more consistent, and you'll also be able to squeeze out just a teeny bit more damage because of the tempers and also the aspect you're able to put on it. So lucky hit, attack speed, vulnerable damage is what you want. Temper, a stun or a utility of your choice. And then damage per Dark Shroud, which is very, very important. This is going to go on all the slots that it can roll on and what make us very big damage. So we don't do vulnerable damage, we do damage per Dark Shroud because it also works on Victimize, believe it or not. So we get bigger damage on our Heartseeker, and it also is flat damage for Victimize key passive too. So it's a win-win. Come down to pins. Obviously you want Heartseeker, you want armor, get your dexterity, another utility temper. Get some ranks to second win, very important. Umbra's aspect, of course, as you see. Coming down the boots, yes, you have to have a couple of choices here. You can do a regular boot here, which is some nice stats to have on it, temper movement speed, and a utility. But you can also do Penitent Greaves, which actually works really, really well if you don't need to hit the space bar that often. If you don't need to hit it very often, Penitent Greaves is actually a very, very good choice. I'm kind of back and forth between running the two. Things actually slow down, believe it or not, with Penitent Greaves. So consider that a choice to make for yourself. Okay, coming down here, generally speaking, you want a bow. I got a crossbow that had GA vulnerable damage, so I was saying, hey, what the hey. I wasn't even sure if this build was going to really work this season, so I'm like, we'll just throw a crossbow on it and see what happens. And so here it is. So you still want dexterity, maximum life, vulnerable damage. You want to temper Heartseeker projectiles, obviously, and instead of tempering vulnerable, same case here, you want to temper damage per Dark Shroud because it's just considerably more damage. You really want to crit on that too, which I obviously got highly unlucky here. On that, you want one crit on the Heartseeker and then double crit on the damage per Dark Shroud. You will love me later if you do that. We're gonna take the Moonrise passive here, which is massive damage on your crossbow. Now we come down to our unique here, the Shard, and this is what kind of gives us really, really big basic attack damage here, and really what makes Heartseeker hit extremely hard. Obviously, you want to try to master work on the basic skills and or the attack speed. Depends on the breakpoint that you're trying to hit whenever you're using a bow for this particular build. But obviously you want the unique value to go as high as you possibly can get it. As you can see, I maxed it out, so I kind of got lucky there, but not so much on the masterwork parts. I still got to do some more work on that. Then we come to the sword, same thing as the two-hand bow or crossbow. You got dexterity, max life, and vulnerable damage. Here you can see something a little different with the tempers though. I still did choose to do the damage per Dark Shroud because that's what you really, really want to do. But I actually did an elemental surge because we don't really need Caltrops duration. It's really not nearly as important. Caltrop size isn't really that important either. So we didn't have anything else to put here. So we're like, well, what can we do? Well, elemental surge damage actually is really cool because it's something that can hit in the AoE manner, something that we kind of lack. So, and because damage per Dark Shroud actually scales with the elemental proc here, the damage on this is actually quite decent while you're in battle and you need to really kill off some stray stuff. So having this here was actually one of those really interesting things that I was experimenting with, and I really, really like it. So, and it doesn't really matter at the moment the element that you choose, because of course your flat damage is your flat damage. It's going to be what it is. If you have cold damage and Eldritch Bounty legendary node actually worked with cold clip, it doesn't currently, but if it did, you would definitely want to go cold. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day which element you pick. Just get one with the high roll and roll with it, and you're gonna like it. We're gonna take conceited aspect here because our barrier is up the majority of the time, so we just get 25% flat damage because, you know, barrier, right? So we take Starless here because we have to be able to upkeep the energy from the shard because now our basic attack actually costs energy. So we need the Starless Skies to balance that out. Typical stats you will see on a Starless Skies. Then we come up to the ring. We take Cold Clip. Cold Clip is really good on your basic attack, Heartseeker here. You definitely want the Dexterity, Critical Strike chance, or Lucky Hit chance. And then also vulnerable damage too. Make sure that you do temper innervation, because you remember back in the skills where I was saying we only just put 1 point in. Well, now we temper innervation, and pretty much our resource issues are practically gone. Here we also tempered damage per Dark Shroud because we want to boost our damage as much as we can because it's silly large. And of course, as I said before, Cold Clip. Coming up to the Amulet, you have Exploit, Frigid Finesse, 2 really good passives. Obviously I want 3, but you know, whoever really gets 3 passes on the Amulet, especially this early. So I just rolled Lucky Hit chance and just left it alone. Here you want to try to do Second Wind for more barrier, and also temper damage per Dark Shroud because, like I said, this is pretty much the theme of the build itself. Then we want to go with Adaptability, which is major damage to your basic attack there. When it comes to gems and gear, as you know, I usually almost always go emeralds. We do have more health in this build than in the previous builds that I did before, but I still would suggest that you do rubies in your gear until you feel like you're comfortable with your barrier uptime, and see if you can actually last in T7 and or T8 content for yourself. Because of Terius Might, we don't really need any all resistance, so we basically throw armor skulls in the jury slot. And on the weapons, as you see, we have diamonds. I got this question on stream a lot today. So we do this to be able to scale the ultimate damage into the no witness to get our damage bonus going up. And last but not least, we got Paragon. I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly. Please make sure to look at the planners to get a better idea of how the Paragon board looks. We're going to start here with Candy in the starting board. As with almost all builds that we play on the road, we kind of start with Candy in the starting board. Then we come up here and we take the no witness board, which is going to be a little bit different than what you expect. You remember the diamonds that I told you to put in the gear? Well, that's to be able to scale your ultimate damage, so therefore you can get this no witness legendary node every time you choose to use your ultimate skill. So this gives us pretty big damage just for casting our Death Trap. If you want to do Shadow Clone, sure, but just Death Trap just has a lower cooldown, so you get a higher uptime on this. Okay, so on this board we take Fluidity, and then we also pick up as much of ultimate damage as we can to be able to scale this passive here. Okay, coming to the right here, we have Exploit Weakness, and then we go ahead and take the Control Glyph, put it in a slot here. We pick up the Exploit Weakness Legendary node. Then we come out here and we take Deadly Ambush. So we put Exploit Glyph here to be able to maximize the amount of vulnerable damage that we can get from the Exploit Glyph. And then we take the Deadly Ambush Legendary node, which works just for having Caltrops, right? So outside of that, we come up here and we take the Cheap Shot board, which we take the Cheap Shot Legendary node. And then we also tap in the Ambush Glyph because, of course, we're using traps, get some extra damage there for that. And on the last board, you want to pick up Tricks of the Trade. As I stated before in my previous guide, as long as you're dashing counts as Cutthroat skill. So you don't have to hit anything, you just got to dash. That's it. You proc that part of it. And then, of course, Heartseeker is Marksman, so you always have this bonus up all the time. Super easy. And that's about it. Who would have guessed that Heartseeker never really died, right? So it's pretty valuable. Play it if you're a really big fan of it. I'm glad to be able to remaster it for you, so hope you enjoyed the video. And as with everything else, hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more content. And as always, till next time.